What's up, guys? Happy Thanksgiving. Or at least it will have been by the time I upload this. I'm recording this on Thanksgiving Day, but likely won't have a chance to upload it till tomorrow because of work. But anyway, still great to be able to once again start another one of these so soon after the last one. And in this case, it's one I've been meaning to do for a while. Today's story is called Soarin's Panty Raid. It's not cloppy at all, despite that very provocative title, so I'm still playing by my rules. But I've had this one faved on Fanfiction for a good while, and was just looking for a decent opportunity to do it. So here we are. I guess this makes up for my not doing a Sourdash fic when I said I would. But yeah, let's just get started. Hope you all have fun with this, and I appreciate your listening as always. Cheers. Soarin's Panty Raid by TheFineBrony.
Call me a coward? Call me a wimp? Not after tonight!
The light blue Pegasus repeated to himself as he flew through the cold night air, his destination known, target coming into sight. Only a few more seconds before Operation Prove I'm a Man was a go. Under normal circumstances, Soarin would never have even thought about doing this, but these were not ordinary times. His pride was in question, and there was no way any pony on the team was going to question that after tonight. The house was now in sight, the moon illuminating his path while he traveled. At first glance, all the lights inside were turned off, just like he had planned. She was out of the house, away at Rarities just like every week, right on time. The cloud gave a soft, squishy response under his hooves as his wings slowed his descent. An address confirmed that he was at the right location. Each step he made gave a quiet poof while he walked. The distance between him and the front door was quickly closing. Upon second inspection, all was clear as well, glass windows lining the door, making it easy to see inside. All was calm. It was now or never. Breathing quickened, along with his heart rate. Flying during a Wonderbolts show or hard training had nothing on this. No amount of practice could have prepared any pony for what was to come next. The task ahead so seemingly simple, yet so hard at the same time. The front porch steps squealed under his weight, the noise splitting through the night air. His body froze upright. His mission may be over before it even had a chance to start. Moisture dripped off Soarin's chin and forehead, his ears perked up, scanning the air. Seconds passed and nothing was to be heard, not even a single peep. He let out a large sigh of relief, continuing on his mission. Operation Prove I'm a Man was still a go. Nothing was stirring inside the house. She couldn't have gotten home yet. Soarin kept his momentum going, trotting around the house's exterior. The soft, cool night air kept him ever so awake as he continued. There hadn't been too much planning on this mission. It was more a spur-of-the-moment idea that was only initiated by his so-called friends on the team. It all started only a couple of days ago, when she came to the academy. She being the one mare every stallion and most mares in Equestria sought after, but were too scared to actually go for. Her smooth, flawless coat drawing each and every member of the Wonderbolts in, only to be hit with that crazy, beautiful rainbow mane, some more than others. Her name was Rainbow Dash. At least he thought so. Everyone on the team knew about her even before she came to the academy. Normally no one went crazy over who was on the roster for tryouts, but this was a different case. Ponies were fighting over who was to get the list next. Attached to the sheet of paper were also a couple pictures of the recruit. When Soarin finally got a turn to see the desired form, all that was left of it was the name, Rainbow Dash, and 2 holes where the staples to the pictures had been. Most ponies on the team and off didn't believe him when he said that he talked to her once. Well, in truth, all he said was,
"You saved it, thanks!"
but was any pony else gonna know that? The fear of losing his beloved pie had overcome the realization of who he was talking to. And so he was able to speak a clear and proper sentence. On any other occasion, it would have been hard to get him to even make a sound. This rainbow dash was a sight to behold, an encounter that could never be forgotten. Soarin had only seen her a couple of times, each one burned vividly into his mind. Sadly, each encounter had lasted only a few mere moments, but that was all that he needed to get the full effect, the most recent being the closest he had ever gotten since the pie incident at the gala. Rainbow walked right past him only a couple of inches away, giving him a close-up view at every detail of the mare. For a pony who claimed to be rough and tough, she was oddly clean and tidy. It still was hard to register that the mare of his dreams walked right by him like it was nothing. He almost even missed it, something so stupid he couldn't even believe it himself. It was just another normal day, just trotting around the facility, then BAM! Like being hit by the Canterlot train 10 times over, the oxygen in the room seemed to be immediately sucked out because for some reason it became hard to breathe. Mid-turn, he spotted the mane that every stylist in Equestria craved, each color pulling him in closer and closer. Secretly, he just wanted to chew on that mane, but no pony knew that. It was his dirty little secret. Maybe it was all the air leaving the room, but her mane seemed to smell like a sweet apple pie, freshly baked and still hot from the oven. No pony could help it, not even a pony with Wonderbolt discipline. Helplessly, his head turned along with Rainbow while she trotted by. His eyes staring at the end of her tail and working their way up to the top, there was no way he could help himself. The way she trotted, flaunting that rainbow back and forth, was unfair. It was like she was just trying to get every pony to look at her. This was where everything went wrong. In the heat of the moment, Soarin had made the fatal mistake of dropping his jaw, letting his tongue fall out. His friends took advantage of it immediately, a couple busting out in laughter at his foolish mistake that only a small colt would have made. Fleet and some others wouldn't let him live it down. It was dumb, so incredibly stupid of him to be taken away in the moment. Even the days that followed, no pony on the team would let him live it down. The story only got more and more popular. It had to be put a stop to. And truly, there was only one way to do that. Something so manly, so bold, so unheard of, that his manliness would never be in question ever again. Do something that would forever rewrite the Wonderbolt's history books of boldness. From that moment and forever forth, his plan was made. Every little detail had gone into planning this little operation, down to the point he even got Ponyville's building record of her house just so he could study it and come up with a plan of best attack. The only part left was up to him, and his sticky hooves. The plan so crazy he didn't even know if he was going to be able to do it. A panty raid. Of the mare that so taunted him everywhere he went. Without a doubt, his manliness would never be questioned ever again by any pony. Stallions for ages would look up to him as the manliest guy that ever lived. Stories would be made of this night and his accomplishments. Heck, the Wonderbolts might even make him captain for his boldness in the line of duty. Soarin's head peeked over the windowsill just outside the planned entrance and exit. The coast was clear, no pony in sight and no signs of life. The stallion gave a quick jerk, trying to raise the pane of glass, but to no use. The window had been locked from the inside. How could he have overseen this? Stupid, stupid, stupid! In all the haste and preparation, he had forgotten about the simplest of things, like the lock on the window. The Pegasus head collided with the glass from frustration. Of all the things that could go wrong, this. Inside, the simple lock gave out a small squeal as it jerked from its semi-closed position. With all hope lost, the stallion lifted his head away, ready to head for home. The next day, he was going to have to march through the Wonderbolt locker rooms empty-hooved. Most would simply just draw it down to him being even more of a mare than most had believed. Instead of saving his manliness, he would lose it entirely. With embarrassment in his heart, Soarin banged his head against the window disappointedly. The lock on the inside slid off its enclosure, opening the entrance. Once free, a spring inside jutted open the window, but just a crack. The cool glass moved against his forehead. Stupid window! Almost without thinking, the stallion pulled his head off, ready to leave and head away in defeat. Then finally he noticed the small gap at the bottom. It was quite possibly the best sight to see besides Rainbow Dash herself. His chance at saving his pride was still intact. He could feel his insides lift in excitement and let out a squeal of happiness like a small filly. Quickly snapping out of it, he looked around cautiously, hoping no pony had heard that. The skies were clear, no sign of any pony for miles, not even a broken cloud or the sound of a Pegasus' wings. Not wanting to waste any more time, he lifted the window fully up, sliding it smoothly to the top, leaving him just enough space to fit himself in. It was actually smaller than he had thought, forcing the wider pony to force himself through the small gap, each muscular wing making it ever so difficult to budge through. His insides compressed together, trying to save as much room as possible. Only halfway through, and things seemed to go from bad to worse. His waist was too wide for the tiny window. Already past midway, there was no backing out now. Soarin tried to wiggle himself in either direction, but it was no use. Again he was defeated, his plan supposedly foolproof, but not Soarin-proof. Rainbow Dash was going to eventually come home to a Wonderbolt stuck halfway through her window. The press and the team would be sure to never let this go. The stallion's tail fell limp against the outside of the cloud home. There was no use.
No, no, no! This is not happening! It's such a simple plan, it's not ending here! I will prove I'm a stallion! No windows are gonna take me down!
The light blue Pegasus tail shot straight back up while he began wiggling again with the same results. This was not the end. He was going to walk happily into the Wonderbolt's locker room tomorrow with a freshly worn set of Rainbow Dash's underwear. It was going to happen. The stallion laid his hooves up against the inner wall of the house. One great push was all he needed. Breath after breath, Soarin prepared, each muscle in his upper body ready and willing.
3, 2, 1! Ah!
He screamed, forcing his hooves deep into the firm cloud wall, all the power that the Wonderbolt could muster. Centimeter by centimeter, the pony inched inside, the progress fueling his power. The power of the mare's undergarments was so compelling he was going to frame them on the wall. Quickly, the muscles began to tire, his face cringing with stress.
Almost there! Just a couple more inches!
The window gave out a pop sound, letting the stallion out of its grip. Without any warning, he crashed directly onto the floor, the sound almost ear-shattering, while items near his entrance began to wobble. If the whole Wonderbolts thing didn't work out, he was definitely never going to become a burglar. His breathing was hard and labored as he lay on the ground helplessly. Spitfire should make this part of their daily workout routine, or just make it a punishment for missing practice, because he could feel his upper body muscles aching everywhere. Slowly, the stallion's heart rate began to fall as each breath began a normal pace. For a task so simple, he was getting a heck of a workout, but it was all going to be worth it when he trotted out the door. The window was not going to work for an escape, and why not just use the door? It's much easier and less work-intensive. Carefully, Soarin raised his aching upper body up to his hooves, so close he could almost smell the underwear now. The stallion turned around and looked at the window. It was such a small piece of glass. He should have just picked another entrance in hindsight.
Stupid window!
The navy-maned Pegasus slammed the window shut, only for the spring to reopen it.
Good enough.
Now for the tasket hoof. The most important part came up now. If the floor plans he had gotten were correct, all he had to do was go down the hall and make a left turn to the master bedroom. He brushed himself off, recomposing. Nothing was going to go wrong any longer. The path easily lit by the light coming from Luna's moon, he was met with something he would never have imagined. He had heard of fans, but never had he seen a super fan. Poster after poster of Wonderbolts-themed images, signed pictures from seemingly every pony on the team, many old retired Pegasi from before his time, old names that littered the Cloudsdale Hall of Fame. It was a crazy collection. Unused tickets along with used ones lying in a glass cabinet in the hallway. The moonlight making it easier to see every item, on the farthest side sat her acceptance letter to the academy. Walking toward her room was like a time machine. There were Wonderbolts Soarin didn't even know about hung up on posters, moving from older to newer. This could almost be a museum for itself. With his eyes scanning the walls, he forgot where he was walking, and without warning, he crashed onto the ground for the second time in less than a minute.
Buck, what was...
The source of his trip was a pair of seats from the old stadium after the remodel. Just 2 cloud seats, clean to perfection, still attached, leaning up against the wall. Hanging above them was a sign that read, "My First Show," which included a picture of a small cyan filly and what must have been her father sitting in 2 seats. Both tickets were sealed and lying beside the picture, one marked B42, the other B43. The chairs were supposed to have been destroyed. They weren't sold off to the public. She had gotten the ones from her very first show, the same exact ones that matched the tickets. Brushing himself off again, he continued on his way. Finally, it was showtime. He reached his designated target just where it was supposed to be. The door was left slightly open. Soarin mentally prepared himself and gently creaked open the old entrance. The room was dark except for a couple strands of light coming in from the outside. He began feeling the door frame, hunting for the elusive light switch. With a sharp click, the lights sparked on, his eyes immediately focusing in on one object in the room. Never mind all the posters of current Wonderbolts, the bed, or any of the other messes inside. He had come there for one thing and one thing only. It was too good to be true. His ticket to being called a real manly stallion for life was lying right there on the floor on top of a heap of other clothes. It seemed like heavenly music began to play. He had hit the holy grail of panties. They were calling his name like,
Soarin, come here. I am right here. Come and get me.
Without thinking, his body just seemed to hover over to the pile right next to his treasure. These were going on the wall for sure, right next to his bed for the rest of his life. He couldn't help himself, picking them up and examining each and every seam. It was too good to be true, a set of rainbow-colored underwear. His mind began to spin just at the thought of Rainbow Dash wearing this. It was so hot. Drool dripped from his lips at the thought, sweat already starting to form on his pores. No doubt wearing these could knock a stallion right over. And they were all his. The guys would never believe this. Soarin held them up to the light, getting a better look. They were new, but obviously worn. The straps around the waist so slim and small they could probably disappear on her body. They would hardly even cover her lower section up, only just the bare amount to hide the important stuff. Operation Prove I'm a Man was a success. His spirits lifted. No pony was ever going to have a doubt over who was the best stallion on the team by far. This would make history books. Wonderbolts for generations were going to talk about this. Soarin could feel his heart rise as just the panties were turning him on. It was too much. He had to smell them. It was wrong, so horribly wrong. But no other pony was around who would know about this. The rainbow underwear was thrown into his nose, the smell something Soarin had never smelled before. He could feel his body grow more and more excited as time passed. It smelled like her, like the mare of his dreams. His head jerked up, coming out of his trance. Some pony else was there, the sound of hoofsteps on the front porch confirming it. His euphoria quickly faded away and turned into fear again. No pony was supposed to be around. Rainbow Dash was at Rarity's until later in the afternoon. She couldn't be here. An unmistakable sound of a cloud door being swung open, the light breeze outside making a small noise against the ajar entrance. It was time for Plan B. Run and hide. Like a man. With Wonderbolt-like speed, Soarin slipped the underwear under his wing and ran towards the light switch. Quickly slamming his hoof against the small piece of plastic, he threw it off, leaving him in the dark of Rainbow Dash's room, holding her panties. When he had entered, he remembered seeing two doors, one a closet, and the other must have been the bathroom. The sound grew closer. Whoever it was, the pony was heading right toward him. It was now or never. He had made it this far, and there was no going back. Soarin turned to the general direction he thought the door was at, and bolted. Clothes and other miscellaneous items caused him to stumble as he ran. Louder and louder the noise became. Now panicking for the bathroom door, the stallion threw himself at the wall, hoping to find the handle. Whoever it was had made it to the hallway and kept approaching. He kept searching. It had to be somewhere near. Never had bumping into a door handle been so uplifting. There was no time to waste. A light blue hoof grabbed the small knob and ripped the door open, giving the muscular Wonderbolt just enough room to push himself in. With moments to spare, the door was slowly closed until only a crack was left open. No more than a second later, the lights came on in the room. Hopefully, he or she wouldn't use the bathroom. There was no escape. Soarin turned looking for anything to hide in or escape through, but there was no place big enough to hide and no window large enough to sneak out. With no place to run, this was his final stand. He had to see who it was. Tiptoeing back to the door, he laid his sight through the crack left open, the drool quickly reforming in his mouth. It was her, Rainbow Dash, home from Rarity's house early. He had no clue what they did together, but that didn't matter. All he knew was that she was out of the house normally till about 10, and it was only about 9. From head to toe, she was covered in fancy clothes, tail and mane both tied with black bands and done up. Never had he seen her like this. Dash was the last pony any pony expected to wear clothes, but here she was in a full black dress. Made only by a true professional, the stitches and seams were perfectly placed. Soarin's aunt had been a seamstress, and a good one at that, and she would have been envious of this handiwork.
Never again will I be Rarity's model.
The mare raised her hooves, searching for the black bands that bound her mane, gently pulling them from the rainbow. Dash tossed the black ties on the bed and shook out her mane, swirling it about to its normal state. The stallion could feel his heart rate rise, the temperature in the room seemingly getting quite warm all of a sudden. Somewhere deep down, he felt he shouldn't be watching this, but he couldn't look away. Most stallions would have to pay for this kind of thing. The mare repeated the process over again on her tail, removing the ties and shaking it about. He couldn't help himself. More than anything in Equestria, he wanted to barge right in and just chew on that tail. It was so good to look at that it had to taste as it looked. Sweat began rising from his pores again, his vision glued on the scene unfolding before him. Dash reached around her waist, removing the elegant, silk-looking black dress which hugged her Pegasus body quite well, if Soarin could say so himself. Every stitch was wondrously hidden from the outside viewer, all the pieces fitting together to create one flowing dress. The combination of black and rainbow was very stunning. She was the best model for the dress. No pony else could pull it off like that. Dash slipped the black fabric off her body, revealing her sparkly clean cyan coat. No impurities or blemishes shrouded the surface on that perfect sheet of skin. It was perfect in all senses of the word. Models would clamor for a body like hers, saying that it's a waste to use it for sport and not art. But that's what she wanted. Soarin's eyes scanned over every inch of her exposed frame, tip to tail, making sure not to miss a single inch. The muscles in her body toned and firm, but not protruding, giving a perfect, sleek, feminine look. His attention caught her behind, the hottest thing he had ever seen and somehow missed moments ago. In between both flanks sat a dark navy set of underwear, adorned with the Wonderbolt's logo, the exact same style as the pair he held under his wing. The mare trotted across the room, giving Soarin a great view of the panties in action. Her rainbow tail swayed back and forth with each pass, hiding the emblem. His eyes couldn't look away. There was nothing in the known world that could have gotten his attention off her. Drool continued to drip from the helpless stallion's mouth, creating a puddle beneath him.
"Thank you, Celestia! I can die happy now!"
Rainbow picked through the closet, obviously looking for something, seemingly with no knowledge of her watcher in the bathroom behind. He couldn't see what the mare was doing, but that wasn't going to distract him from the show before his eyes, taking each and every second in like it was a dream. It almost was. Having a set of her underwear was already amazing enough, but seeing her in them trotting around was something else entirely. Seconds passed while she continued searching. The urge inside Soarin to just run out was getting so hard to control. With each moment, it only got worse and worse. All he wanted was just to go out there and nom on that mane. His eyes began to dry as he continued staring, not wanting to miss a single instant, and he didn't plan to blink either. Every second was a present within itself.
"Oh, come on, where is it?" "Whatever,"
Rainbow Dash grumbled to herself. The mare reached around her body and grabbed onto the underwear, slowly pulling them down to the floor. Time seemed to go by so slowly, the navy fabric gently sliding down her cyan thighs. The amount of saliva on the floor immediately doubled in size. This image was going to be burned into his memory forever, and he loved it.
"Best night ever!"
After removing the worn pair, she tossed them back into the closet from where they came. Rainbow turned around, now in her usual state, because after all, ponies normally don't wear clothes. She kicked the door shut while carrying something in her mouth that Soarin couldn't see. As quickly as she had come in, now the mare was gone, leaving him alone again. With another buck, she closed the door to the master bedroom, oddly leaving the lights on. Processing the situation was difficult. He had come for such a simple task, and was granted so much more. It was time to act. She couldn't know he was here. If he remembered right, there was a window out in the hall, down past the one he had come in, that was a little larger. It was near the family room where Rainbow was probably going, but he could maybe manage it. Because no doubt she was going to have to use the bathroom before the night was over. Soarin tried to move his hooves, but couldn't, his body still in utter shock. Eventually forcing himself to move, one hoof found his warm, sticky puddle of saliva that had accumulated on the floor during the best moment of his life.
"Oh, buck me."
The stallion shook off his forehoof, looking desperately through the bathroom for a rag or something. He found what must be a towel, quickly mopping up his little mistake. If this had happened in the academy the day Dash walked in, he would have had to do a lot more than this to prove he was a stallion and not a colt. Probably having to ask her out in front of her father or something, which could only lead to one thing: pain. Soarin tossed the towel back toward the tub, now ready to start his retreat. With underwear now in tow, it was time to escape with his prize and head back a new man. These were going to be pinned up high on the wall for any pony who came into his room to see. He had medals and trophies from all kinds of events from all over his life, many first-place victories at some of the most prestigious races in Equestria, but this was by far his favorite. Maybe even a picture frame with gold plating might do nicely. Tiptoeing across the room in light made it much easier to be more quiet, now being able to see the mess on the floor. Noises came from the kitchen beyond, a good sign. If she was in the kitchen, he might have a good chance to slip by and sneak out into the night. Soarin trotted over to the door, mentally preparing himself for the task ahead. Only a couple more minutes before his manliness was to be restored, and he a legend at the Wonderbolts forever. His mind was still on the scenes that just unfolded, remembering and watching her every move, carefully taking off her mane and tail bands, swirling that beautiful rainbow about, sliding that silky smooth form-hugging dress off her perfect figure, trotting with that set of Wonderbolt edition underwear, then sliding them off so very gently down her backside in full view of Soarin. He would never forget this night, and how could any pony? Giving the room one last look over, something caught his attention. Rainbow didn't manage to close her closet door all the way, a slight crack still open to the outside world. All the things that could be inside that small space, so many wonders just waiting to be explored. One set of panties was awesome, but how about two? One for work and one for home. He could brag to others about his score in the locker room and hang up the other pair at home. Noises kept coming from the kitchen as some pony was moving things around or something. Now was the best time to leave, but the underwear inside was calling to him, saying,
"Soarin, don't leave without me."
How can any pony resist the call of a mare's undergarments that had the logo of his flying team, worn by the pony of his dreams? Skip now and maybe get out, or stay, grab the underwear and maybe something else, and come home with more glory. His hoof hovered on the door, unsure of what to do.
Oh, to buck with it!
Soarin let go of the door handle and ran toward the closet, quickly reopening it, revealing the wondrous treasures inside. For a pony who hardly wore clothes in public, she had an odd amount of apparel.
Jackpot!
Beyond the blue doors lay a wasteland of clothes, including lingerie the light blue Pegasus didn't even know existed. Rarity probably didn't even have the amount that lay in this room. Left to right there was nothing but dresses, skirts, blouses, tops, bottoms, boots, and all kinds of other things. His eyes sparkled over all the contents like it was some kind of buried treasure. Just thinking of Dash in all these clothes started to form a bit of drool around the corners of his mouth. Again.
There!
Past all the wondrous fabrics that were scattered about lay his goal. Laying atop some pants in the far corner was the small piece of material adorned with the Wonderbolt's logo. Soarin reached out, trying to possibly grasp at mostly the edge, his desire to have the mare's underwear urging him on ever more. It was in vain. His hooves were too short to make the distance, the pile of clothes before him stacked too high and dense to make way for entry. The Pegasus backed up from the closet, stretching himself. He was going in after them. There was no way in Equestria he could go home without them now, not after everything. It wasn't a large space, but long enough back that one would have to wade a ways in to reach the end. It was go time, no more waiting. Soarin trotted forward. Seeing his target in sight, the stallion reached out his hoof, straining to get to the back. The underwear was so close, yet so far, only a few mere inches from his outstretched hoof. His face clenched tightly, throwing himself farther in, the soft fabric just touching the end of his hoof. Only a little bit farther to glory. Heat emanated from the fabric. He could feel it in the tip of his hoof, still fresh and warm. Soarin pushed in harder, the mess of clothes blocking his entry. Slowly his hoof closed farther in on the undergarment. He wanted them more than anything in all of Equestria. The smooth surface of the underwear was like silk. Sweat began to drip down his face as he pushed harder for a better grip. With a swift grab, the mission was accomplished. He had them. No pony would ever question his manliness ever again. Soarin let out a sigh of relief. The guys were going to go nuts. When he told them of his plan, they all thought he was crazy and insane, too much of a coward to go through with it. Now he had 2 pairs of panties to march triumphantly back into the academy with. Forever they would hang up upon his wall in all their glory after he showed them to his teammates. Maybe even his tombstone one day would read of his success and how much of a man he was. The stallion had grabbed the most revealing piece of clothing from the most magnificent mare in all of Equestria, the mare who no pony had the guts to ask out. And not only did he have the set, he had a story to tell. Seeing the rainbow-maned pony wearing the pair with his team logo on it, watching her gently slide off a black form-fitting dress. Operation Prove I'm a Man was a smashing success. The light blue Pegasus took a second to himself, still almost all the way inside the mare's closet. He wasn't even out of the room, and he was already celebrating, holding the underwear as high as he could in victory. Nothing could stop his happiness and confidence. He was riding a high like he had never felt before. A wave of confidence flowed through him, much greater than winning any races or any awards. If any pony would have been around, they would have seen the most coltish grin on his face. He had just done the impossible, and had the evidence to prove it.
"Found what you were looking for?"
A voice called from behind. His heart stopped dead. He knew that voice, its slight rasp and cuteness. All the air in the room seemed to fade away, his lungs refusing to continue working. His body froze, the panties with the Wonderbolts logo still hoisted above his head inside the closet. Time stopped altogether. He hadn't even heard the door open. The happiness and confidence eroded as quickly as they had come. How was any pony going to explain this? He could barely talk to her in the first place. Holding her underwear and trying to do the same was going to be much more tricky. He jerked his body around, hoping to save maybe some of the situation. He only ended up banging his head off a shelf, causing its contents to spill out over his head. Soarin picked himself up, turning around to face the voice. He managed to shake his head, clothes spilling out onto the floor below. Right before him was something he could never imagine. The stallion's eyes slowly worked their way up the pony before him. She was wearing long rainbow socks on each hoof except one, each stretching from the floor to her body. Every color of the rainbow over and over working up, eventually meeting with her rainbow tail and mane. One forehoof remained bare. Soarin's body continued to shake. He was nervous, scared, and embarrassed. There was no way of getting out now. Rainbow Dash stood at the entrance, grinning widely ear to ear. Her hooves spread wide apart, blocking the doorway before him, the only escape. The mare's eyes sparkled a bit as she looked on at her intruder, not the kind of reception he was expecting if caught. She didn't seem startled or anything, like somehow she was waiting for him. The mare looked at the stallion. She knew who he was. Almost any Pegasus would know him by looking at him. He stood there, shaking and weak in front of her closet, a pair of underwear on one ear and a sock on the other. His body froze as the mare approached, the uncertainty of what came next lingering in the room. Her tail wagged back and forth, and if he wasn't completely paralyzed with fear, he would have commented on how hot she looked. The socks blended perfectly with the natural color of her mane and tail. The grin Dash wore only seemed to get larger and larger.
"You do know what I do to Wonderbolts who break into my house, right?"
Okay then, not bad, huh? Hopefully y'all got a kick out of that. While it is a bit all over the place in spots, I think overall it's a fun story, and I definitely had fun doing it for you all, if anything. So, hope to hear good things, like always. Next story I'm thinking about is another one I've just kind of been putting off again and again, which is another anthro clop called That Time of Year. So with luck, that'll at least be started soon. I'm still so pleased I was able to get this one done so quickly as well. So until next time, my friends, thanks again. I will see y'all later.